All right. So, welcome, guys, back to Pop Culture with Pat. My name is Pat, and this week I have a special guest with me. His name's Tim Jacobus, and he's actually the mastermind behind a bunch of the covers for the Goosebump books. How you doing, Tim?
I'm very good. And yourself, Pat?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Awesome.
So, first, thing I wanted to, just ask you was, when did you know that you wanted to be an artist, and what were some of your earliest influences?
Back in the day when I was growing up, being an artist wasn't, like it just didn't seem like a job. It wasn't something they talked about in school or anything like that. So me and the other guys that I knew who drew, you just did it for fun. I was 18 years old, a senior in high school. I had taken a bunch of art classes in school, and I really liked it. It was something that I did a lot in my free time. I was playing sports after school, and I had to fill my day. I had enough classes. I had met all my college requirements. I was all set there,
Yep.
but I needed to fill the day with other classes. So they had a special program where you got on a bus and they drove you over to the local vocational school, and they were teaching commercial art. Now, I didn't know anything about commercial art. So it was a kind of an eye-opening experience, and it was the first time that I saw art as a business, and it changed everything. I had already agreed to go to a different college for a different major, and this last gasp my senior year in high school just made me want to give all that up, go to art school, and start being an artist. So the guy who was my teacher, his name was Frank Neubauer. He was a ex-Marine. So I wasn't taught by your standard, feel-good art teacher. This was more of a smoke 'em if you got 'em kind of guy. And he was pretty stern, and he was tough about deadlines, but he taught us all the right way to approach your art career.
Okay. All right. And how did you get get the job for the Goosebump books? And what was your relationship like, with R.L. Stine?
I had worked with Scholastic Books for a couple of years. I'm going to say something like 5 years.
Okay.
And I had done a handful of books for them, always one-offs, no series. And I had, I kind of proved myself to be responsible and good about deadlines and that kind of stuff. When the Goosebumps job came along, I just happened to kind of be in the right place at the right time. I had a style that worked well, they thought. I hadn't done any real horror stuff. I was doing a lot of mystery books,
Yep.
but, I was still playing with perspective, and, the colors were a little richer. They weren't quite the crazy Goosebumps colors that we got to down the road, but, like I said, I was kind of standing in the right place at the right time. So when Goosebumps came along, they let me take a shot at
Okay. And then, I know you've created over 100 covers for them, now for the series. Can you just kind of talk about, what the process was like, kind of from, start to finish for the covers?
it. Sure. R.L. Stine was writing the books at the same time I was doing the covers. So I never had a full book to read prior to starting the covers. He would send me, this was back in the day before digital, so I would get faxes of, a short version of the story, usually a couple of paragraphs, sometimes just a couple of sentences, describing either a character or a scene or just the general overall premise of the book. And I worked directly with art directors at Scholastic, and we kind of talked it over a little bit, and I would go to work. And the basic process was I would do 3 sketches. Now, my process is to do lots and lots of thumbnail sketches, which are little scribbles, get them down on paper, get as many ideas down as I could.
Yep.
After I did, a number of pages like that, there was always a handful of ideas that kept either repeating or they kind of floated to the top, and I kept going back to them. I would pick out 3 of those out of the bunch and draw them up on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Because again, I'm going to fax my sketches back to them. So that was the size I worked. The sketches were 8 inches by 8 inches. I would render them, pretty well. So there was, some shading and everything. So you could really see some decent detail, but I didn't go crazy on them. And I would submit 3 ideas for every Goosebumps cover. The art directors and the editors would take a look at it. Sometimes they would just simply pick one, which happened most of the time. A number of times they would just say, hey, we like the house in number 2, but can you put that in the, in the foreground of sketch number 1? So we did some combination type work.
Oh, okay.
At that point, I'd get the green light, and I would take that sketch, which was 8 by 8, and I would blow it up on a Xerox machine. And I would make it 20 inches by 20 inches. Final paintings for all the Goosebumps artwork was 20 by 20. I worked on Bainbridge illustration board, which is a double thick board. It's got a little bit of tooth to it. It's not like a plate finish. It's got a little texture to it. I like the way that pulls the paint off the brush. I would then start the final painting, which was I used acrylic paints. Love acrylic paints because they dry real fast. They can dry in just a couple of minutes, where if you work with oil paint, from what I understand, there's oil paintings that can be 50 years old that don't ever dry. But, I have to hurry up and get these things done. So I actually painted with a hair dryer in my left hand and a paintbrush in my right hand, just to speed up the process. I like to put my hands on the artwork when I'm working. So again, it's got to be dry. Yeah. It would take anywhere from 30 to 40 hours to complete the whole process, from sketches to final painting. I would then take it over to Federal Express and stick it in a box and ship it over to Scholastic, and then they would take a look at it. If they were happy with it, it would go right into production. Sometimes they send it back for adjustments. That hardly happened, which is rare. I've been in the book business a long time. Did 100 Goosebumps covers, but I did probably twice or 3 times as many that weren't Goosebumps covers. Okay. And almost always the paintings used to come back. Somebody has a tweak. Can you make this a little lighter? Can you make this a little bit darker? That all the way up to, can you repaint this whole section? For the most part, with the Goosebumps stuff, they, were happy with what I was doing, and I didn't have to do a lot of corrections. So that's great. That's a dream come true for an illustrator. Yeah. And the thing that was really great is R.L. Stine was writing 1 book a month, so I had guaranteed work. His stories were always different. I had new characters and new monsters and new everything every month. So it wasn't like I got, kind of stuck doing either the same elements, same characters, same anything. So it really was a great deal of fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say that must have just been, really nice for you, especially with them, not coming back, too many times and having too many corrections, but then at the same time, R.L. Stine just kind of giving you just little pieces, so giving you really a lot of room to kind of work with.
Yeah, it was really an ideal situation. The funny part is almost every single time the painting is done, and I really don't know how the story ends. So I think that may have helped in the long run. I never really thought about it until years later. Yep. But I think that was probably a good thing, that I didn't know what the, crescendo or, climax to the story was.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I actually have one question that a fan wanted to ask. His name was Logan, and he was just wondering, which covers would you say are, some of your favorites, and, just why do some of those, stand out in your mind?
Some resonate for different reasons. Most of them are when I get the concept and I start to draw them up, I'm going, boy, I'm not sure. When I'm not sure about it, those are always the ones that generally end up taking on a life of their own. Yeah. Egg Monsters from Mars is one of them that comes to mind. I got the description and I'm going, well, this is just kind of an egg and it's on the counter in the kitchen. What am I going to do with this? And once I started to play with the perspective and we got all the ooze going and everything else, it all worked. It worked the same, it just came around. And when I was done, I was like, yeah, this is great. This is better than what I had imagined.
Yeah.
The blob that ate everyone. That's another one that kind of had the same thing. It was, it's a blob and it's in the street. And I'm going, well, I don't know. I just don't know. And then once the thing, starts to come to life and I got it moving down the street and it's eating bicycles and put that warped perspective on the houses, then all of a sudden I get excited.
Okay. All right. And then now, just kind of on the other side of things, which cover would you say, took the longest, or maybe it was like, what were some of the hardest ones for you to complete?
The one that took the longest was it was in the Series 2000 Invasion of the Body Squeezers. Invasion of the Body Squeezers. So what that was is it was a two-parter.
Yep.
And book came out. You got two pieces. You got two covers looking very similar, but it was actually one painting. So if you look at those real close and you put them together, they actually are the same piece. So it was kind of a 2-for-1. So I had to do two covers at the same time and kind of plan for everything to fit as if they were single covers, but make it all come out. That painting was twice as large. So now we have something that's 40 by 20. And when we shipped it, it ended up getting a little bit damaged. So I had to get that back, kind of nurse it a little bit in some spots so you couldn't see where it got dinged up. And so, yeah, I spent a lot of extra time on that one.
Okay. And now, this is something that, I find interesting. Just how were you able to maintain the balance of, creating something that was, scary, but at the same time, not too scary for kids? That had a lot to do with, going back and reading a couple of R.L. Stine books, because there was always that balance. There's that balance of horror, and then there was always some sort of humor element in there. Sometimes it's dark humor, sometimes it's just outright slapstick stuff. Yeah. So, I knew that was an important element. My style itself is not overly realistic. Yeah. I have a cartoonish, play to what I do. So we're already leaning in that direction. None of the things that I do are going to be so realistic that you're going to believe that they're real. You're always going to go, this is definitely pretend. Yes.
And then the last element was the use of color. There was a real concern by the publisher when the book first came out that it might be too scary for the kids in that age group. And when they saw that my art was going to be using all these, bright oranges and reds and yellows and, just the saturated color palette, again, that makes it less scary. Yeah. So the combination of the cartoonish art and the extra color, I think really was what set it off and gave we could get the images to be a little, scary, but then the rest of the style and the color pulled it back the other way.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I remember reading something, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the Haunted Mask has your goddaughter Jessie on the cover. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And
that's correct. And she told all her friends she was going to be on the cover. And when I put the mask, I handed her a mask and said, "Put it over your face." She realized nobody was going to recognize her on the cover. She was mad. She was way mad. So luckily that became a big seller, and I was able to get her some copies. So she could prove to her friends at least it was the top of her head on the book.
I was going to say that's probably one of, you could arguably say one of the, most classic stories or even covers out of the series. So I mean that's pretty cool to say that you were or she was on there. Did you ever?
And what's fun, and even funnier is now she's an adult.
Yep.
She went to med school. She's a doctor, She has 4 kids of her own, but she can still, her claim to fame is she can still say she was on a Goosebumps cover.
That's awesome. Did you, for any of your other covers, did you try and incorporate any other like family members or aspects of your life?
Yeah, whenever I could, it was always good to put, a family member, and always in a pinch, I'm the guy who's standing there, and if I need to make a face and take a picture of my face, then I'm gonna use me. So, versions of me have graced a couple of covers. The infamous one is Camp Jelly Jam. That's definitely me all the way. Sadly, that's me. And the Girl Who Cried Monster, where the guy's getting ready to eat the turtle. That's me as well. That's fat bloated me. Trying to think of, and I know my niece was in another one. I think it was Ghost Camp, where there's I may be wrong with the title, but there's a group of campers walking along a path.
Yep. They're
all invisible except for their shirts, and then there's a little girl at the end. Yeah, that's my niece, Megan.
Oh, okay. So how did she feel about that, or even like to this day?
Yeah, that it was always it becomes funnier as everybody gets older.
Yep.
Megan is she's in her early 30s and she's getting married in a couple of months. So it's way funnier and more fun to talk about it now than back then. Gotcha.
All right. And there, are there any covers? I believe I remember hearing or reading about one of that, one cover that was never released, but was there any covers or concepts that you worked on that were never released?
Just the book 26 in the 2000 series was one that actually I was hired to do, and it got complete, but never got printed. There are, like I said, I was doing 3 sketches for every Goosebumps cover. So there is 2 alternate versions of every one of the covers in pencil form, filed away somewhere up in my attic. So I don't have any that stand out where I, as of right now, where I go, out of, the sketches for, the Haunted Mask,
yep,
they picked the wrong one. I don't have any of that gut feeling. Almost 99% of the time, whatever they picked, I was like, yeah, this is a good one. This one works. Let's roll with this.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to ask you that if there was any time that you, preferred any of the alternate covers or sketches over, the one that ended up getting chosen.
Well, it's hard to, the hard part is all I have is the rough sketch. And anytime you compare a rough sketch to a finished painting, you're always going to lean towards the finished painting. But like I said, there was no mind-blowing concepts that slipped by everybody. Everybody, everybody was on the same page. So I think we did okay.
Okay. And for me, I think, cover art, it's such an important aspect in, several different forms of media. I remember picking up these books and, just remembering how cool the covers were, when I was a kid. Do you feel that, basically people are going to be seeing your art, for the first time? Do you feel that puts any extra pressure on you, knowing your artwork is often the first impression these readers have?
That's what you sign up for. As an illustrator, that's my job. I can't control what goes on between the front and the back cover, but I can control when you're walking in a bookstore or you're online looking for a book and you're scanning and you're comparing my book compared to everybody else's book. I need you to touch my book. I have to get you to pick it up. So that's the challenge. And what was a great deal was not only could I have a great format with the Goosebumps book and get you to pick it up, but when you took it home, there was meat between the pages and you guys were hooked on the stories inside. So every month I was the lure, I was the fishing line to get you to grab the book. but it was R.L. Stein's job to reel you in and keep you in. So that's the best part of what I do.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, because I just, I remember going to, even with like video stores and picking up movies. A lot of times I would really make my decision almost just based on solely like the cover art. So picking up your books, definitely that was, I would say, obviously the biggest thing that attracted me. But then afterwards reading the story as well.
Exactly, because if the stories were not good, you wouldn't keep coming back. And if my covers weren't any good, you might not have picked up his books.
Exactly.
So it's a tandem thing. We've become a way more visual society. So being able to create nice images, like you say, they're using imagery everywhere. We're being bombarded with it, as a matter of fact. But again, it gets our attention, and if it can just get you to pick up something or click on something, that's great. That's I like that idea.
Exactly, I agree. Now, you were involved with the first Goosebumps film, where I knew you did the artwork for the score with Waxwork Records. I actually have a copy myself, and
oh, nice, because I don't even have a copy of that.
No, I saw that, and I definitely, especially when I saw that they had gotten you to to do the cover art, I had to pick that up. What was it like, revisiting those characters and creating that piece?
It was great, because I got actually a chance to do 3 pieces for that movie. I did the piece you just described. In the movie itself, right at the end, Jack Black is looking in the glass case and he sees the Invisible Boy typing. He turns to the camera and screams, and right then he morphs onto a Goosebumps cover, and the movie goes to credit. Well, I got a chance to paint that Goosebumps cover with Jack Black on it. So my artwork is in the film for literally 1 second, and if you blink, you'll miss it, but it's there. And I did another piece that was a sweepstakes. If you won the sweepstakes, you got a Goosebumps illustration with you and or your family in the illustration. So you are part of the Goosebumps art. So I hadn't done straightforward Goosebumps art in 20 plus years. So it was really a blast to go back and revisit the characters, especially the album cover, where I got to do so many of them. Yep. In the interior. Putting all the characters together is a blast, or putting more than one character in a new location, that's different. Generally on the books, it was one character, one cover.
Exactly.
These, mashups are fun. And, to have them all in the movie theater was a nice twist. I was hoping that it would look like a long lost Goosebumps illustration, one that was, matched the rest of them. You kind of said, holy crow, this looks just like the old stuff.
Yep.
But it's not.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much, when I remember seeing when Waxwork, put the art out, that's pretty much actually my first, exact thought that I had, that it looked like this was something that could have, came out in the 90s. So I think you definitely succeeded there. Do you
awesome
have any involvement with the upcoming film at all?
As of right now, I don't. But that's not to say something won't happen at the last minute. With the first movie, it ended up happening the same way, where I wasn't contacted till late in August to do all the work that I ended up doing. It was all very kind of last minute.
Yep.
But there's as equally as good of a chance that I won't be part of it. But that's life.
Yeah. But yeah, you never know. So maybe we'll see
Yep.
something pop up at the end again.
Yeah, but I would tell you. I would definitely tell you. It's not that I'm keeping a secret.
All right. And then I remember, reading originally that, you thought that the series was only going to be, about 4 books. And now, over 25 years later, what is it kind of to look back and realizing, your artwork played such a huge part in the success of, this phenomenon with Goosebumps?
It's all very, it's kind of surrealistic, and it's very flattering. Especially now, I've been going out to some comic conventions and meeting people, and most of them are the original Goosebumps people, the ones who are reading them in the 90s. It's,
Yep.
I do meet some kids, but it's mostly the older people. And the fact that you guys still look back on it so fondly and can remember titles and talk about specific art and still talk about it with so much joy is not lost on me. I love every minute of it, and I am humbled.
I was gonna say, was there ever, I'm sure, you get asked about Goosebumps, obviously all the time. Is there ever been a point where, it was too much, where it just kind of, you're just asked about it, so much, and, kind of getting pigeonholed into, just knowing about Goosebumps?
There was, the short answer is no. I'm like I said, I'm so happy to be involved with something that, again, makes people happy. The only time it wasn't great to be the Goosebumps illustrator was right at the end of the 2000 series, in the early to mid 2000s, because everybody was over it and they wanted something different and they wanted the art to be different. So I was kind of, I was floundering a little bit. I had to kind of change my style, change what I was doing just in order to get work.
Yep.
Luckily at that time, that's when the digital revolution kind of kicked in, and I got a chance to break away from the traditional illustration board, paint, airbrush, acrylic paints, and start doing digital work. And it gave my work a new look. It gave me a new way of doing stuff, and it gave me another avenue to market my stuff. So at first it was very painful, but it was truly a blessing in disguise.
And, you mentioned switching over from traditional to, to doing digital. Do you find yourself, preferring one over the other, or is it you kind of like, different aspects of both?
You kind of hit on it right there. There's aspects to both that are really great. What I've been trying to do more of as I move along is try to come up with more of a hybrid scenario where, all my stuff starts out as traditional. It's pencil, it's on paper, it's scribbles, and I draw for a while, and then I push it into the computer, clean it up a little, sometimes add some colors. Sometimes I'll bring it back out and print it again, and then add texture to it, with paint and brush, and then push it back into the computer again and finish it up in there. So you have kind of both worlds going on. And because you can get textures and things in traditional art that you can't get in the digital world, and there's digital stuff that I just can't match in the outside as well. So combination is real nice.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I actually I think I would almost compare it to, like, if we're talking like the film industry, comparing it to practical effects versus CGI, where some stuff the practical effects just look so great, and but then sometimes you have CGI that looks great as well, but you can only get certain things with practical, and some things obviously you can only do certain things with CGI. So yeah, just getting that balance. So I totally understand.
And it happens everywhere. Yeah, I mean it's going to keep evolving that way. Music. Everything is going in that direction. So yeah, sure, you can play traditionally on a guitar, but at some point that stuff's going to become digital, and it's going to become, get inside a machine somewhere, and you can play with it and do different stuff. And I don't look at it as being a negative thing at all.
Yeah. Now, just to go back real quick too, just to kind of, talking about, the fans and stuff like that, does it ever surprise you, the amount of merchandise that some people have, or just, some of the different items that people have?
Yeah, it's great because I follow some people on social media who are collectors, and yeah, I'm actually more impressed that I'm seeing stuff that I never knew it existed 20, 25 years ago. You know, some of it I know, some of it I actually, you know, I had a part in it, and there's, you know, my painting on the cover of the box or something like that.
Yeah.
But then there's just stuff I had no idea the depth of the stuff that's out there. So it's some of it's an outright funny too. So I'm enjoying all this.
Now, and you know, to jump back, you know, as far as, you know, the artistic side, do you consider yourself to be a perfectionist, and how do you overcome that if you are?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a perfectionist, but it's almost it's compulsive. What's nice as an illustrator is there is a defined deadline. So, you know, the artwork has to be done by X day. There's no fooling around, especially when I was doing book covers. It's got to be on that day, no matter what. So I know when I get to that day, I got to hand it off. Now, if I have the option of tinkering or playing or tweaking my work endlessly until I determine it's done, that's a problem. You know, I've had pieces of art that hung on the wall that I would say, okay, this one's done, and I would hang it up. And a month or so later, I'd keep looking at it and go, yeah, I don't like that part. And I'd take it back down, and I'd work on it again and go, okay, that's it. And I'd hang it back up. And a month later, I'd take it back down. I had one that evolved incredibly. It went from the end painting didn't look anything like the original painting. Yeah. I found that if I had to put them under glass. That was the solution. Get glass on the frame, and you won't keep taking it down. So, yeah, I can be. I'm very critical of my work. I don't like everything. I don't dislike any of it, but you know, there's an arc while I'm painting. There's the beginning where you're like, oh man, I don't know. Can I do this? Is this going to match what I see? Halfway through, you get excited. You're like, oh man, yeah, this is really starting to work. 4/5 of the way through, you're like, yeah, this is coming out really good. And then the last fifth is kind of a grind because you just got to finish, and you got to do. You're kind of doing the hard work, the trim and the spackle, and you know, as if you were building a house, and you got to finish it up and get it out the door. So then on that side of it, you start to lose a little bit of the thrill. So yeah, it's what drives you to the next painting. You know, you walk away from it, you go, yeah, okay, it's pretty good. I would do this and this different next time. All right, give me another one.
I would say it's almost, you can almost say it's, you know, it's kind of a gift and a curse, because, you know, in a way that, you know, sometimes you might constantly, you know, be going back to a piece and trying to, you know, you want to change certain things about it. But then also on the other hand, you know, you might have started out with something, you know, a certain way, and then it totally ends up evolving into something else that you had, you know, no idea. And you end up, you know, really loving that down the road. So.
Yeah, it's all good. And usually if there's something that I see in a painting that, you know, okay, it's a book cover and it's got to be done, and out the door it goes. And in my head, I go, you know, when you do something like that again, make sure you tweak it this way. And inevitably, the number of paintings that I end up doing, you know, there is always that second opportunity where you can put that thing that you kind of filed away in the back of your thoughts as, yeah, I'm going to do it this way the next time. And the next time comes around.
Yep. Now, you know, I want to ask you, you know, did you ever get a chance, or, you know, did you ever watch any of the episodes from the original television series?
Sure.
And do you have any favorites, or were there any like books that you wish that would have gotten an episode?
Well, they haven't. I mean, you know, sure, more would be always better. Yeah. The Haunted Mask, of course, was kind of the classic, and you know, that was kind of. I'm thinking it was probably the first one that I saw. The one that I wanted, the one that I really liked was the. You Can't Scare Me, the mud monsters. Yep. That come out of the swamp. I like I like the television show better than I like my painting. So yeah, that one. That one was good. Now, I haven't gone back yet since they re-released this stuff on Netflix.
Yep.
And I'd love to see them again because I'm pretty sure my memory is that the production quality is definitely dated when when you take a look at them the second time.
Yeah, no, I've gotten a chance to, watch, because they've released some of them, Netflix, but I've got some of them like on, DVD and stuff like that too. But
oh, cool.
I think it, it obviously, it helps, growing up in the time period and stuff and looking back on it because the whole nostalgia factor. But I actually remember, the Haunted Mask, that particular episode was one that my mom, she used to actually scare the crap out of me because she could do the Carly Beth voice so well, and I remember telling her like stop. So that's a memory that that I definitely won't forget. And I actually have a copy of the Haunted Mask that I bought from it's Trick or Treat Studios. They've done a couple of masks from the Goosebumps line. So, but and then so you mentioned were there any episodes or like any books that that you said that didn't get like an episode that you you'd like to see or you would have liked to see?
There's not one that's popping into my head. I know they did the Revenge of the Mutant or Escape of the Blue Mutant guy, which was good because that had Adam West in it, right?
Yep. Yeah, that
was
a fun one.
Yeah, that one I enjoyed just because Batman was in it, and but there isn't one. Right off the top of my head, I can't think of a particular story that I think would have been ideal.
Okay.
Maybe Horrorland.
Yep. All right, and just kind of general, are there any properties out there that you would love to do some work for that you haven't had a chance to yet?
I never even thought of that. I don't know where I'm a good fit. Like I said, my art is kind of what it is. I can't just go, I'd like to do some Star Wars work because it would definitely not work. I'm more interested in, something that's not established. I still am contacted by, young and upcoming writers and somebody who's got a different spin on stuff. So that's more of what excites me than something that's already established. I'd like to get in on the ground floor of something where, again, either I'm leveraging my style already or, I'm trying something completely different in a new arena.
I would say kind of like how Goosebumps started.
Yeah. Old guy Goosebumps.
All right. Well, what are you currently working on right now? And then, just where can, fans, find you or get in contact with you?
So I just finished up an album cover. I can't, most of the stuff that I just finished, I can't tell you any more than I got an album cover that I just completed literally over the weekend.
Okay.
That should be out. I'll be posting that information shortly. The other cool thing is I was hired by a ski company to paint, to design skis for their 3 top athletes.
Oh, wow.
And they should be being released soon. And those are that's wicked cool because that's completely out of the norm and it's a whole different format, big, long, things as compared to square books.
Yep.
And lastly, JacobusStudios.com. It's just been live for a short period of time and you can stay on top of my work and there's a couple of things for sale there.
All right. Well, Tim, I just want to, say thank you. I really appreciate you, taking time out of your schedule to, do this interview. It's been an honor just because, where, like I said, I was a huge fan of, Goosebumps growing up. So getting a chance to, talk with you, and kind of pick your brain about this stuff. I definitely appreciate it. So thank you.
Pleasure's all mine, Pat. And I appreciate you reaching out. And to what you said earlier, I don't get tired of talking about this at all.
All right. Well, thank you, Tim, and I hope you have
You bet.
a good rest of your day.
Okay. Take care.